Kriti Mataji to introduce today's topic and also the presenters. Mataji has been a clinical psychologist and he has been part of our congregation for the last 3 years. And she has been co-teaching the youth for the last 1 year. Without further ado, let me welcome Kriti Mataji. Hare Krishna Mataji, please take over.
Hare Krishna devotees, on behalf of Mahasundari Devi Dasi and I, we are really excited about today's class. Today's class will be given by our entire current youth class. The students will be speaking about what they covered in last semester's content, which is chapter 4 of the Bhagavad Gita. They'll each speak on a verse, they'll give a purport summary, and then they'll each share their personal realizations from that verse. We both are really proud of them, of all the hard work they have put into this presentation. It's definitely not easy to present in front of such a large group, so we admire them for stepping out of their comfort zone. I will go ahead and share my screen before I make a couple more points. So a couple of points before we begin. We will be switching between each student as they go over their verse. So there may be a bit of lag, but we appreciate your patience as we switch between each student. At the end, we won't be doing questions today, but if you have any points that stood out to you or you want to appreciate, please take a note of that or even write it down, and you can share that at the end of class today. So without further delay, our first student, who actually just joined us in this summer semester, is Shreya.
Hello. There was a royal family called the Kurus, which Arjuna and Krishna were both connected to. Although the descendants of this family were actually Kurus, there was a disagreement between the 5 sons of Pandu and the other members of the Kuru family over who should be the king. Because of this disagreement, the sons of Pandu became known as Pandavas. Arjuna was the 3rd son of Pandu, and Krishna was related to and friendly with both factions of the Kuru family. The Pandavas wanted to settle this dispute peacefully and even suggested that the Kurus keep the kingdom and simply give them 5 small villages, 1 village for each of the Pandu brothers to rule over, as they were Kshatriyas and needed to have at least some land. But the Kurus rejected this very reasonable proposal, stating that they would not give the Pandus even a piece of land the size of the head of a pin. So in this way, the Kurus forced the Pandavas to fight them, and the leader of the winning group would go on to become the king. The next person who will be speaking is Hansa.
The significance of the Bhagavad Gita is that it means the song of God. It's the dialogue between Krishna and Arjuna, where Arjuna is asking the question and Krishna is sharing his knowledge with him. Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and Vedic literature has the words that he spoke to Arjuna. This was spoken about 5,000 years ago during the time of the Mahabharata, yet the timeless knowledge is still relevant today. They speak about the nature of things, who we are, and the purpose of life, and this knowledge we can apply to solving the problems we face today. The next person that will be speaking is Vijay Krishna.
So here's the verse that I'll be speaking on today. It's from chapter 4, verse 1 of Bhagavad Gita. Shri Bhagavanu Vacha Imam Vivasvate Yogam Proktavan Aham Avyayam Vivaswan Vanave Praha Manurikshvakave Bravit. The personality of Godhead, Lord Shri Krishna said, I instructed this imperishable science of yoga to the sun god, Vivaswan, and Vivaswan instructed it to Manu, the father of mankind. And Manu, in turn, instructed it to Ikshvaku. Before I speak anything on this verse, I'd please ask forgiveness for any mistakes I make, as I may make many, so please kindly forgive any mistakes I make while speaking on this verse. So, Srila Prabhupada starts off in the forepart by stating that the sun god is the origin of the royalties of all planets. And this is supported, this supports the conclusion of why the name of Vivaswan was given here, because Vivaswan is a Kshatriya, and what a great Kshatriya he was. He was given the rule over all the planets. all the dynasties. So he's the origin of all the planets, all the dynasties in that regard. This is also found in Brahma Samhita, where Lord Brahma says that I worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Govinda, who is the original person, and under whose order the sun, which is the king of all planets, is assuming immense power and heat. The sun represents the eye of the Lord and transverses its orbit in obedience to his order. So in this way, we can see that the instruction and power of Krishna have both been given to Vivaswan, the sun god, in this way. In Srimad Bhagavatam, there's also another verse to support this claim made by Brahmaji. As we know, Srimad Bhagavatam is the topmost authority when it comes to matters such as these. To support what Brahmaji is saying, there's a verse in Srimad Bhagavatam coming from the 3rd canto, chapter 25, text 42. Madbhayat vati vatoyam surya tapati madbhayat varshatindro dahat agni mrityu charati madbhayat. That madbhayat vati vatoyam surya tapati madbhayat. The sun is blazing and it's doing his prescribed duties out of fear of Krishna. So that Krishna who goes and steals butter from the gopis' home, who is bound by Yashoda Mai's pure love, is the controller of all the universe. He is the controller of the sun god, who is the origin of all dynasties for all planets. And that same Krishna is going around doing his leelas in Vrindavan. So in that way we can see that Vivaswan got this knowledge, his power and his knowledge from Krishna in this way of Bhagavad Gita. Secondly, Prabhupada talks about how this knowledge is given from Manu to Ikshvaku. And he references a verse from the Mahabharata coming from the Shanti Parva 348, text 51 to 52. And in this, it is stated how Vivaswan gives this knowledge of yoga. In fact, it is stated that Bhagavad Gita was actually spoken twice. The first time, Krishna spoke it to Vivaswan. And the second time, when the chain of disciplic succession was lost, which is spoken in the second verse of this chapter, when the disciplic chain was lost somewhere in the middle, Krishna once again spoke it to Arjuna because he was non-envious of Krishna. So in this way, Bhagavad Gita was spoken 2 times, dear devotees. So this is found in Mahabharata. And Ikshvaku is also one of the 10 sons of Manu. Manu had 10 sons, and the foremost and topmost of those sons is Ikshvaku. This fact is confirmed in Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 8, Chapter 13, text 2 to 3. There is also an excerpt from the purport I'd like to read here. A common misunderstanding on Manu is that there was one Manu. In fact, there are 14 Manus for every kalpa, which is a cycle of that universes go through. So I'll speak this excerpt right here. At the present moment, we have just passed through 5,000 years of Kali Yuga, which lasts 432,000 years. Before this, there was Dwapar Yuga, 800,000 years. And before that, there was Treta Yuga, 1,200,000 years. Thus, some 2,005,000 years ago, Manu spoke the Bhagavad Gita to his disciple and son Maharaj Ikshvaku, the king of this planet Earth. The age of the current Manu is calculated to last 305.3 million years, of which 120.4 million years have passed. And the final thing that really stood out to me in the purport, which definitely should be included in the summary, is why Prabhupada uses the word science of yoga. Now, when you really come to think about it, science is a word used as a reference point. Whenever we need to know something, we refer to science. Okay, let's say the chemical composition of water. We may know it's H2O, but that was, that's under scientific knowledge. So we use science as a reference point. In the same way, yoga is our reference point to know our relationship with Krishna. And that is why the word science of yoga is given. And that's why the science of yoga was passed down. That's why it is significant in this verse. Mataji, can you move to the next slide, please? Thank you. So when I was thinking about this verse, I was wondering why Krishna did not state the Brahma Sampradaya. Because Brahmaji is been given that he is the great grandfather of Vivaswan. Now, when we talk about somebody and we glorify them, we usually start with their ancestors. At least in Vedic in culture, it is said like that. From the Kuru dynasty, this person came down, so etc. So why did Krishna not glorify Brahmaji, who is the great grandfather of Vivaswan? Why did he go directly to Vivaswan and say Vivaswan gave this knowledge to Manu? Why didn't he say that Brahmaji gave this knowledge? And it has been confirmed in the Srimad Bhagavatam that Brahmaji is the great grandfather of Vivaswan. This, in fact, is given in This is given in Bhagavatam 9.1.10. And Brahmaji is such a great personality. Why didn't Krishna talk about Brahmaji? It is stated that Brahmaji receives knowledge through the heart. The essence of Bhagavad Gita itself was spoken by Krishna to Brahmaji through the heart, as confirmed in Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 9, Text 30. You know, Prabhupada says that there are 4 ways a person learns something. The first class learner is one who simply hears the instruction and realizes it. For example, if someone was to tell you smoking is bad, right? The first class learner would be the one to just hear it from an authority and to learn it. The second class learner is that who sees another person experience it. Let's say my uncle's friend has been diagnosed with some lung disease due to his smoking. So then in that way, the second class learner will know that smoking is in fact bad. And there's still the third class learner, that who has to experience it himself to learn. That is one who, you know, if I was to smoke myself and then get a lung disease, then I would learn it that way. And the fourth class learner is one who just simply does not learn. But Brahmaji is so great that through the heart, Krishna is able to carry these messages to him. So why not talk about Brahmaji? And Brahmaji spoke this to Narad Muni. He spoke this knowledge to Narad Muni as confirmed in Srimad Bhagavatam 2.9.41, where Narad Muni is one of the sons of Brahma, and Brahma instructs it to Narad Muni. And then after that, Narad Muni gives this knowledge to Vyasadeva. But the way he gives it to Vyasadeva is something interesting in itself. He questions Vyasadeva. Are you satisfied with what knowledge you have gained when compiling the Vedas? Are you satisfied with your understanding of Vedic knowledge? And Vyasadeva replies, no, he is not. Even after compiling so many Vedas, how can one not be satisfied? But he replies, no. And this is how the essence of Bhagavad Gita is given from Narad Muni to Vyasadeva, which is something we should learn, dear devotees. We are so lucky to have the association of 2 great Swamis in our movement. One is Radhanath Maharaj, and the second is Giriraj Maharaj. Radhanath Maharaj quite literally was traveling the entire world, searching for the answer to life. If you hear his amazing book, Journey Home, you will see the struggles that he went to just to find the answer to this very question that Vyasadeva had. And Giriraj Maharaj would drive all across the United States to search for the answer. So something we should learn is that when we see someone looking for something higher, then we should give them Krishna, the knowledge of Krishna, of who they are. But if someone has no such taste, is not looking for anything like that, then perhaps it is not possible to give that knowledge. In this way, from Brahmaji to Narad Muni to Vyasadeva, our Brahma Madhva Sampradaya was started. Gaudiya Sampradaya comes as a part of the Brahma Madhva Sampradaya, dear devotees, of which Srila Prabhupada is in the 32nd generation of disciples after Krishna. So the thing I learned here is that Krishna chose to talk about relatable people instead. And that is what we should also learn. So these aren't any regular Kshatriyas. These are Mahashatriyas, great kings. And these great kings were well known by all the Kshatriyas for their amazing feats. I won't have to talk much about Vivaswan, because Vivaswan, being the sun god, ruled all the planets. He was the origin of all the dynasties and was hence the first Kshatriya. So what more to speak about him? The first Kshatriya, of course, has to be great and has to set an example for all the Kshatriyas to come after him. And this is quite the reason why Krishna gave this knowledge to Vivaswan, so that Kshatriyas coming in the near future, including Arjuna, would also learn from this knowledge. Now, Manu is also glorified in the Srimad Bhagavatam. It is given in the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 21, Text 2, Bhagavatam. It is given that Manu was the ruler of the 7 islands, the 7 continents today, dear devotees. And remember, this is a time where there were no satellites. The discovery of tectonic plates didn't happen at this time, according to science. But it was still given that there were 7 continents, 7 islands. And Manu ruled the entire planet, the entire Bhumi. So in this way, Manu was also a great king and was serving Matsya avatar in escorting all the people and animals during the time of the great flood, as you know that pastime. And Maharaj Ikshvaku, what to speak of him? He was so learned in the process of yoga that he ends up banishing his own son for a simple mistake, what we would consider a simple mistake nowadays. So his son Vikukshi was going one day to hunt animals to gather for a sacrifice. Now this was possible in that time. It is not recommended in Kali Yuga, and that is because there are personalities called Brahma Rakshas that watch over these ceremonies, watch over if the yajna is going right. And if there's one small mistake in the yajna, everything gets destroyed. All the people there too get destroyed. And also at that time, they were able to bring back the animals that they were sacrificing during that time. So that is why it was possible at that time, but not possible at our time. So Vikukshi, anyways, was going to hunt these animals. And when he was hunting those animals, he became tired. He became hungry. He gave all the excuses that we give today. And he, on accident, ate a rabbit during that time. Now, because of this, Maharaj Ikshvaku banishes his son because he is so learned in the process of Bhagavad Gita. Krishna talks about how every single one of us is a part and parcel of Krishna. And he really took that to heart, that this rabbit is also part and parcel of Krishna. Why you bring harm to him? So in that sense, he knew that his son was also part and parcel of Krishna, equal to the rabbit. So he had no right to harm the rabbit. And in that way, he banishes his son. So that just shows what kind of example he sent. He is a Maha Kshatriya. It's a great king. So in this way, Krishna gives the examples of great kings about Vivaswan, Ikshvaku, and Manu. He gives those examples instead of Brahma, Narad Muni, and Vyasadeva. Because if you were to give those examples, then Arjuna would be like, well, those are great sages. They're supposed to do that. But no, he gives the names of Kshatriyas, that they have accepted this knowledge. Look, these are your people. I'm sure you've heard of them. They're great Kshatriyas. And they're from you come in their dynasty at some point, and that is why you should also follow this knowledge. So by giving the name of relatable people, oftentimes we talk about in the corporate world that you want to be somewhat relatable to the person you're talking about, especially a client, to get, familiar with them, to get, close to them. And oftentimes if you want to make a good sales pitch, you have to have some level of common understanding with them so that, they trust you. So in the same way, Krishna gives the names of relatable people to Arjuna. These are Kshatriyas. Arjuna is a Kshatriya, ruling class. So in that way, he gives the names of Kshatriyas and sets an example for Arjuna that this process of yoga should be followed by people like you. And it helps develop appreciation for Arjuna for this yoga process. So with that, I will conclude, and we'll move on to our next speaker, I believe. Advait is sick today, so we'll move on. Yeah.
So since Advait is sick today, as Vijay Krishna said, he's unable to join. Between Kriti and I, we will actually share what he has, what he was planning to present. How do I do this? Okay. So the verse Advait had was 4:2. Evam parampara praptam imam rajeshayo viduhu sakale neha mahata yogo nashta parantapa This supreme science was thus received through the chain of disciplic succession, and the saintly kings understood it in that way. But in course of time, the succession was broken, and therefore the science as it appears to be lost. This is the summary from Advait. The Gita was especially meant for saintly kings because they were to execute its purpose in ruling the people. The Gita is not meant for the demoniac person, one would forget its value and no person's benefit while creating interpretations according to their personal beliefs. The purpose of Gita was lost when unfair and dishonest commentators broke the disciplic succession. The Lord sensed this 5,000 years ago, and there arose a need to establish the disciplic succession.
So on behalf of Advait, this was his continued summary. So even today, there are innumerable interpretations of the Gita, but most of which do not accept the Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna, but rather make business of his words. These spirits are demoniac and they do not believe in God, but they make use of his property. The Gita as it is a great gift to humanity, but if treated as a compilation of philosophical speculations, it is nothing but a waste of time. Advait's realizations. The chain of disciplic successions has been through time. The disciplic succession is a chain of speaker to speaker passing on this science. The disciple understands the process of God realization from the guru, from in turn received it from his guru. In the nature of this world, through time, this transcendental knowledge is contaminated of its purity. When this chain is broken, Krishna addresses the problem and establishes the disciplic succession. So next we have Risha.
Hare Krishna, everyone. Sa evayam me devya yoga prokta puratana bhakta sime sakacheti rahasyam e atadutamam. That very ancient science of the relationship with the Supreme is today told by me to you, because you are my devotee as well as my friend, and can therefore understand the transcendental mystery of this science. So there are two types of people in this world, the devotee and the demon. And the Lord taught this transcendental knowledge to Arjuna because he is the devotee of the Lord and not a demon, and so he can understand this knowledge. A demon will not be able to understand this knowledge. Only by having a relationship with God will someone be able to understand this knowledge, like how Arjuna had a relationship with Krishna. There are many copies of this knowledge of the Bhagavad Gita with commentaries by demons or by devotees. The devotees' commentaries are real, while the demons are useless and mislead the public from Sri Krishna's path. And it is important to note that it does not necessarily mean demon, like demon, but it also means, it just generally applies to non-devotees' commentaries. Arjuna accepts Sri Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and any commentary following Arjuna's path is true devotional service, and one should follow dislipic succession from Arjuna. So when I read this verse, I was wondering why being a devotee was the only qualification to understand this knowledge. I wondered why a scholar could not simply read it and gain at least something from it. And so I was reading different commentaries, and I came across one that said, true devotion to the Lord destroys the subtle envy of the soul toward God, and enables us to accept the humble position as his tiny parts and servitors. And when I read this, it makes sense, because if you're not a devotee of the Lord, then your pride prevents you from understanding what God is trying to tell you. If you do not accept that there's some sort of higher power above you, it can be really hard to accept the knowledge that is put in front of you as the knowledge of God. And this humbleness allows us to accept and understand God's message because we understand that there is a higher power. Otherwise, there's a sort of envy of God and a pride which prevents you from understanding the true message that is being given to you. Arjuna, and I knew Arjuna was a friend of Sri Krishna, but after reading this verse, it occurred to me that Arjuna was also a devotee in that he was a friend to Krishna. He worshipped Krishna as his friend. So Arjuna was a devotee to the Lord because he worshipped Krishna as his friend. And so Krishna told Arjuna this knowledge because he understood that Arjuna was devoted to him, and there would be no pride or envy, and that he would accept Krishna's message and apply it in his life. And this brings me to my third point, in that there are many types of devotions to God. I knew there were other types of devotions, but it was kind of sort of ingrained in my blood that we always worshiped God as like a higher power, but there actually are many different types of devotions, which I listed in the slide. There's Santa, neutrality, Dasya, servitude, Sakyam, friendship, which is what Arjuna was to Krishna, and Vatsyala, parent, and Madhurya, soulmate. And all of these different types of devotions are different relationships with God. And only by having a relationship with God can we truly understand the message of the Bhagavad Gita. And this relationship only comes through true devotion. So we should try to establish a relationship with God and be devoted to the God so we can fully understand his message. And now I'll pass it on to Akhil.
Arjuna Vacha Aparam Bhavato Janma Param Janma Vivasvata Katham Etat Vijaniyam Tvam Ada Proktavaniti. Arjuna said, the sun god Vivaswan is senior by birth to you. How am I to understand that in the beginning you instructed the signs to him? Shri Bhagavan Vacha Bahuni Me Vyatityani Janmani Tava Karjuna Tam aham veda sarvani natvam veda parantapa. The personality of Godhead said, many, many births you and I have passed. I can remember all of them, but you cannot, O subduer of the enemy. So some points that I had from the parapet were the difference between Arjuna and the part and parcel living entities and the Lord is that the Lord remembered the incidents, whereas Arjuna or the part and parcel living entities could not remember. Anyone who is a constant companion of the Lord is certainly a liberated person, but he cannot be equal to the Lord. Krishna remembered acts which were performed by him millions of years ago, but Arjuna could not, despite the fact that both Krishna and Arjuna are eternal in nature. A living entity forgets everything due to the change in the body, but the Lord remembers because he does not change his Satchidananda body. He is Advaita. There is no distinction between him, his body, and himself. So devotees may forget, but by his divine grace, one immediately understands the infallible nature of the Lord, but a non-devotee can never understand. So due to a change in our body, we tend to forget things. Only by pure and alloyed devotion and not by simple study of the Vedas can one understand the Lord. So if you do this simple study of Veda, you just don't understand the God. And like Lord is like the Vaidurya stone, which changes color, but still remains one as stated in Brahma Samhita 5.33 and 5.39. So Lord has various incarnations like Rama, Nrsimha, and many sub-incarnations as well, but he is still the original form. So next person speaking is Kirti.
Hare Krishna, I'm Kirti. I want to continue with verse 4.6. Ajopi san avyayatma bhutanam ishvaropi san prakritim swam adhishtaya sambhavami atma mayaya. The translation is, although I am unborn and my transcendental body never deteriorates, and although I am the Lord of all living entities, I still appear in every millennium in my original transcendental form. I'd like to share some key points from Srila Prabhupada's purport. This verse talks about how when Lord Krishna appears in this material world to perform his pastimes here, he descends in his original transcendental form. He does not have to transmigrate from one body to another or take on a material body like the living entities do. In fact, the word avatar means descend or to come down. This verse also highlights how the Lord is different from the living entities, thus establishing his supremacy. He appears in his pure form by his own sweet will and by his causeless mercy to attract and deliver the jivas. I want to highlight some of my key realizations from this verse. Firstly, Krishna remembers all of his past births. as stated by Akhil in the 5th verse of this chapter. I don't think I can recall what I ate for breakfast yesterday, what to speak of all of my past births. This shows how Krishna is transcendental. In our daily lives, we usually try to plan the future based on the present. However, the Supreme Lord plans the present based on the future. He knows the past, present, and future of every one of us. Another point I'd like to share is that when we take birth in this material world, we take on the body of one of the 8.4 million species present on this planet based on our karma. We are also constantly influenced by the 3 modes of material nature throughout our lives, as stated in Bhagavad Gita verse 3.27. Prakrite kriyamanani gunai karmani sarvashaha. We think that we are the doer of activities which are actually carried out by the 3 modes. In contrast, Krishna can decide how he wants to appear in this world, as the material nature is actually under his control. This is explained further in Bhagavad Gita verse 10.8. Aham sarvasya prabhavo matta sarvam pravartate. This means that everything comes from Krishna, and he is in control of it. Srila Prabhupada often gives the example of a prisoner in jail versus the president visiting the jail. Both are in the jail, but the prisoner is under the control of the jail's rules and has to act accordingly, while the president is actually in charge of the jail. Similarly, we are trapped in the jail of this material world, but when Krishna descends here, he is not under the control or influence of this world. Krishna's transcendental form is different from ours because our material body will deteriorate through Janma Mrityu Jara Vyadi, which is birth, death, old age, and disease. Research even shows that we have a completely new set of cells in our body every 7 years because all of them die and get replaced by that time. In the bhajan, Bhaja Hure Mana, it is stated that this life is Kamala Dalajala Jivana Talamala. This means that this life is like a drop of water tottering on a lotus petal. And with this uncertainty, we still try to make so many plans every day. Some people may be confused by Krishna's pure form, as is explained in Bhagavad Gita verse 9.11, Avajananti ma muda manushim tanum ashritam. Krishna says in this verse, fools deride me when I appear in a human-like form. Therefore, the only way to understand his transcendental form is by the guidance of a spiritual master and the Shastras. In this verse, 4.6, Krishna also says that he is the Lord of all living entities. This does not mean that he is like a dictator. In fact, he's actually our benefactor. Our relationship with him is like a whole part relationship. Serving him is our natural state of happiness. For example, when we feed the stomach, our fingers are naturally nourished. Similarly, if we serve Krishna, we will feel nourished and fulfilled as well. The 3rd line of verse 5.29 says, Suhridam Sarva Bhutanam. This means that Krishna is the well-wisher of all living entities and appears by his causeless mercy. With this, I'll conclude. Please forgive me if I've made any mistakes unknowingly, and thank you so much. I'll hand it over to Sanket now. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. I'd just like to start by saying if I make any mistakes, please forgive me. So now I shall start. Yada yada hi dharmasya glanir bhavati bharata abhyuttana madharmasya tadatmanam srijamyaham. Whenever and wherever there is a decline in religious practice, O descendant of Bharata, a predominant rise of irreligion, at that time I descend myself. So I'd like to talk about a few key points from the purport. So Prabhupada writes, Krishna descends to earth on a schedule, namely once a yuga, but he does not have to follow these rules. And when Krishna appears, it's by his own will when there is the disappearance in true religion and the predominance of irreligion. Dharmam tu sakshat bhagavat pranitam, from Srimad Bhagavatam 6.3.19. It says that only the Lord can manufacture a system of religion, and not the rishis in the topmost heavenly planets or demigods in Siddhaloka, what to speak of asuras and human beings. The purpose of Vedas is to establish principles of dharma, or religion, under the order of the Supreme Lord, and that the highest principle of religion is to surrender unto Krishna. And when such principles are disturbed, the Lord appears. And the purpose of incarnations are to arouse Krishna consciousness everywhere. So in simplified terms, the shloka says, when no one knows or follows true religion, Krishna descends to earth, descends to establish religion or dharma. So I'd like to focus on the first two words of the shloka, which are yada yada. They have particular significance because I used to have restrictions on Krishna. So the first yada means whenever. So I used to think Krishna only appears once in a yuga, performs his pastimes and goes away. But in this shloka, Krishna says he can appear anytime and not only once in a yuga. And the second yuga means wherever. So I used to think that Krishna only appears in India, because if you see Lord Rama appeared in Ayodhya, Krishna in Mathura, just to name a few. So I thought Krishna only appears where cows are being protected and where there's Brahminical culture. But here Krishna says he can appear anywhere to establish dharma. So when Krishna appears when there's decline in true religion. So what is religion? So it is established by the Lord himself, and the principles are clearly indicated in the Bhagavad Gita and other holy scriptures. So now you may ask, why is Krishna not appearing now? Because there is still a lot of irreligion, cows are being killed. So now Krishna is now present as the holy name, and that there is no difference between the Lord and Lord Sri Krishna himself. So I'd like to mention two verses. So from Chaitanya Charitamrita Adi Leela 17.22, Kali Kale Nama Rupe Krishna Avatara. Krishna descends in this Kali Yuga in the form of his holy name. And the second verse is from Madhya Leela, but is found in the Padma Puran when Mahaprabhu quotes it. It's from Madhya Leela 17.133, Abhinatva Nama Namino. There is no difference between Krishna's names, and they're identical. And finally, when Krishna descends, mercy. Hare Krishna. The next person going is Satvik.
Hare Krishna, everyone. Please forgive me if I make any mistakes. My sloka is 4.8. Paritranaya sadhuna vinachaya chaduskritam dharma samstapanartaya sambhavami yuge yuge. To deliver the pious and to annihilate the miscreants, as well as to re-establish the principles of religion, I myself appear millennium after millennium. The perfect summary is, a person may appear to be irreligious, but if he has the qualifications of Krishna consciousness wholly and fully, he's understood to be a sadhu, and diskritam applies to those who do not care for Krishna consciousness. Such miscreants or diskritam are described as a foolish and the lowest of mankind. Even though they may be decorated with mundane education, whereas a person who is 100% engaged in Krishna consciousness is accepted as a sadhu, even though such a person may not be learned or well-cultured. And the particular form of the personality of Godhead who descends is called an incarnation or avatar. My personal realizations are, having stated in the last verse that God descends in the world, he now states the three reasons for doing so: to annihilate the miscreants, to establish dharma, to protect the pious, and to please his devotees. An example is Prahlad Maharaj, because Lord Krishna could have killed Hiranyakashipu any way he wanted, but he chose to appear as Lord Nrsimha. When God descends in the world, he reveals his divine forms, names, virtues, pastimes, abodes, and associates. This provides the souls with an easy basis for devotions. Hare Krishna. The next person is Mohit.
Okay, so today I'll be doing Bhagavad Gita 4.9. Janma karma cha me divyam evam yo veti tatvataha tvaktadeham punarjanma neti mamiti so Arjuna. One who knows the transcendental nature of my appearance and activities does not, upon leaving the body, take his birth again in this material world, but attains my eternal abode, O Arjuna. So I'm going to be starting with the purport summary. Some key points from Srila Prabhupada's summary are, so I'm not saying exactly what Srila Prabhupada said, but I'm picking and choosing some parts of his summary to explain. So liberation is not easy. And to put this in perspectives, the impersonalists and the yogis can attain liberation only after repeated births and multiple troubles. Still, the liberation they seek, merging into the impersonal Brahma, is only partial and at risk of returning back to the material world. Better yet, a devotee, simply understanding the transcendental nature of the body and activities of the Lord, never has to risk going back to the material world. Next. So, through the Brahma Samhita and the Vedas, it is understood that the Lord has many forms and incarnations, yet they're all one and the same to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. You can see Krishna has his internal, external potencies. Next, one can attain the perfect stage of liberation from birth and death simply by knowing the Lord, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and there's no way to achieve this perfection. So once again, this is stating that unless you understand who God, Krishna, is, there is no way to attain liberation. Now, I'm going to go into my personal realizations. So when I read this verse, I thought it might be very difficult to understand for anyone to understand who God is. And when you go on the street and you just ask anyone who's God, you're going to realize each and every different person is going to have a very different answer. No one has the same answer. And I feel like that is normal, but we need to come to at least a universal understanding of who God is. So over here, I'm talking about how God is defined as the cause of all causes. He's the being who is the basis of all beings. He's the foundational existence that makes all existence possible. And this is a very difficult topic to understand with logic and philosophy. And right now at this stage, it would be best understood with utmost conviction if you are to be liberated in the material world. And we can understand this definition of God, but then when this happens is we recognize the question, who created God? And this is a very, very difficult question to answer because it's circular. Did the chicken lay the egg, or was there the chicken that laid the egg? Or did the egg give birth to the chicken? No one knows. It's circular, it's infinite. Krishna is infinite. But if Krishna is infinite, how does everyone see Krishna in a different way, yet have a personal relationship with him? God is infinite beyond depiction. And now we have to understand that Krishna has his own pastimes to relate with all his devotees in an intimate way. So Krishna is finite and infinite. And we can understand this through the rasas. There is Dasya rasa, Sakyam, Vatsalya, Madhurya rasa. Through these rasas, we see that Krishna has intimate ways of interacting with his devotees. Everyone, in fact. You don't even have to be a devotee for Krishna to interact with you. And if we neglect that definition and equate him with depiction alone, we blunder because now we're saying Krishna is only finite, not infinite. And then then there has to be a starting to something that's finite and an end to something that's finite. And Krishna is never ending. And lastly, since this is very difficult to understand, Bhagavad Gita 4.9 states that we can attain Krishna when we understand him in truth. So the answer to this very difficult question is, as soon as you understand him in truth, you can attain Krishna. Next slide. We need to begin with the definition before progressing to depiction. Because without knowing who God or Krishna is, there's no way we can understand his love for us. When we appreciate Krishna's infinite loving nature, which is manifested in his sublime reciprocations of love with every living entity, and recognize that entering into those loving exchanges will supremely fulfill our longing for love, we can understand this philosophical definition of Krishna, and once again go back to Krishna. I'm going to take it to Parul now.
Hare Krishna. I'll be talking about verse 4.10. Vitaraga bhaya krodha manmaya mamupashitaha bahavo jnana tapasa puta madbhavamagata. Being freed from attachment, fear, and anger, being fully absorbed in me and taking refuge in me, many persons in the past became purified by knowledge of me, and thus they all attained transcendental love for me. So now to summarize the purport. So Prabhupada talked about attachment, fear, and anger, and why we have to let go of them in order to surrender to Krishna. So if you're too materially affected, you can't understand the transcendental nature of God, and you won't spend enough time on spiritual life. So if you're too materially affected, you won't be able to understand that Krishna is not impersonal, but he is actually personal. Because usually when you're too materially affected, your bodily concept, when you think of a body, you think that it's perishable, full of ignorance, and eternally miserable. Whereas Krishna is in fact full of knowledge, imperishable, and eternally blissful. As Kirti mentioned before, Krishna's body is different from ours because his body can never deteriorate. So when people think of God and they think that of his personal form, they think of how our body is not perfect. God is supposed to be perfect. So for these people, being perfect is mutually exclusive of having a personal form. So therefore, they think of him as impersonal. In addition, like if you're too materially affected, then you're going to spend time on other things that's not related to spiritual life, like watching TV or going out with friends, stuff like that, instead of trying to advance in spirituality. Next, to talk about fear. People, because like they're too attached, the concept of retaining personality after liberation scares them. Because if they find out that spiritual life is also individual and personal, they fear that they will fall down and become persons again. So instead, they'd rather merge into an impersonal void, like a drop of water merges into the ocean. And this is like a fearful stage of life because you don't have the perfect knowledge of spiritual existence. Then Prabhupada also talked about anger. So some people can't understand spiritual existence at all, so they become disgusted or angry and decide to believe that there is no supreme cause and everything is void. There are like so many different theories, speculations, and philosophies that these people decide that there cannot be a supreme cause. They're also known as atheists or like non-believers. And one has to be free of attachment, fear, and anger in order to take refuge of Krishna and attain liberation. And you can do that by taking the guidance of a spiritual master and following the disciplines and regulative principles of devotional life. One of the last stages of devotional service is called bhava, which is the preliminary stage of transcendental love for Krishna. Real love for God is called prema, which you can attain by doing constant transcendental loving service unto the Lord. So to attain this highest stage, we have to be free of attachment to material life, fear of a spiritual identity, and the conception of void that arises from frustration in life. So now for my personal realizations. We spent a lot of time on this in our youth class. Like we spent 3 weeks just talking about this verse. So I'll like go through fear, anger, and attachment. So what is fear? Fear is when we think of something or someone will cause us pain or is dangerous. And usually if we're scared of something, then we won't go near it or we'll like avoid it at all costs. Common fears include grades, heights, spiders, and failure, and surprisingly, God. if you think about it, a lot of times people are told or taught to fear God. Maybe not outright. They're not outright told that if you're not doing something right, or if you're not following exactly what God says, then you're going to be punished. But usually subconsciously people think that, oh, I'm doing this and this is wrong. God is like always watching, so I'm going to be punished if I do this. So in that way, God is a very common fear for a lot of people. And usually when we're scared of something, it leads to a lack of trust. If we're probably not going to trust something if we're scared of it, or if someone tells us that we shouldn't be scared of something that we are scared of, then we're probably not going to trust them. For example, I have a fear of spiders. You might even say I have arachnophobia, although I have not been medically diagnosed yet. But if you were to tell me to hug a spider or to let a spider crawl all over me, and that if I did that, it would save my life, I don't think I would do it, just because I'm so scared of spiders, even if I knew that it would save my life. In this way, like if we're scared of something, then we won't trust it. So if you think about it, this will also apply to Krishna or God. If we're scared of God, then we won't have complete trust in him. Where even if we're praying to Krishna, we might think that, oh, Krishna is going to do something bad to me, or, oh, Krishna is going to cause this to happen in my life. And so we won't have a complete trusting and loving relationship with him. So it's okay to approach God with fear, because like one of the type of people who approach Krishna is the people who are distressed, and that goes with fear. But once we start worshiping Krishna, we shouldn't have fear of him or anything else. We should trust him, and we should believe that he'll take care of us and make sure that whatever happens to us is for our own good, because as Kirti said, Krishna is our benefactor. So yeah, that's why we have to let go of our fear in order to take refuge of Krishna. Next, to talk about anger. For me, this one is probably the hardest personally to let go of, because anger usually results from unmet expectations. Like if we expect something to happen or someone to do something and those expectations aren't met, then we become angry. Yeah, like for example, a lot of times, this is probably a very relatable example. I expect my brother to do things for me. Like I expect him to treat me with a certain level of respect, or to give me things, or like do things a certain way. And when he doesn't do them, that tends to make me angry, because he's not doing what I expect of him. Whereas if I didn't expect anything of him and I just accepted his behavior as it was, then I probably wouldn't become angry. Instead, I'd probably be happy every time he did something nice for me, which is, to his credit, he does nice things for me a lot. So yeah, so I probably wouldn't get angry, which brings me to the next thing, controlling anger. So the best way, in my opinion, to control anger is to be tolerant. Like if you're tolerant of others when they don't meet your expectations, or even better, if you don't have expectations at all and you're just tolerant of other people's behaviors, then you probably won't get angry. You'll just accept things for how they are, and you'll learn to like adapt or deal with it. Anger in religion is also like a very prominent theme, especially in today's world. A lot of times people get angry like in the name of religion, and they use religion as an excuse to get angry at other people. But religion itself, no faith in the world, tells people to be angry at other people and to hurt other people. That is like our own interpretation, and that's our own expectation of how other people should behave. So in order to surrender to Krishna, we have to make sure that we're not angry, because especially if we're angry at Krishna, we feel like he has wronged us, and that he's not treating us fairly, and we won't be able to like properly serve him. Because just think about it, if you were angry at somebody and someone else came and told you that you had to be loving towards them and serve them for the rest of your life and do whatever they want you to, would you do it? I don't think so. So in order to perform loving service unto Krishna, we shouldn't be angry at him. And if we're angry, that means that we're expecting things from Krishna. But instead, we should have no expectations and just take whatever he gives to us and trust that what he does is for our own good. And finally, to talk about attachment. So I think attachment is emotional investment in something, whether it's a football game, another sport, a pet, a TV show, whatever it is, it's attachment. When we have it, we're at least partially satisfied. This one, attachment relates to anger and fear a lot, because if we're attached to something while we have it, we're going to be scared of losing it. For example, if we have like a pet, like a dog, then while we have the dog, we're going to be like super happy because the dog makes us happy. We're emotionally invested in it. But while we have it, there's also the fear that, oh no, what if my dog gets sick? Or what if my dog gets hit by a car? Or what if my dog runs away? So we're going to be constantly in fear of losing our attachment. And then we also, usually whenever you have attachments, you also expect to have it forever, even though we all know that's unrealistic because everything in this world is temporary, even our own body. So if we, for example, if we set a Guinness World Record and suddenly for how far you can spit a watermelon seed, and your record is like 10 feet, but someone else comes and spits it for 12 feet, and you've had the record for so long, but suddenly it's gone because everything in this world is temporary. And so when we expected to have that Guinness World Record forever, but when that got taken away, we get angry at whoever happened to beat us. So in this way, attachment can lead to both fear and anger. So we need to let go of our attachments in order to take refuge of Krishna, because one, it can lead to anger and fear. And if we're attached to material things, then we can't surrender to Krishna because we won't want to let those attachments go when he tells us to. And yeah, so all three of these things are a cycle: fear, anger, and attachment. They all lead to each other and are related to each other. So you have to be free of all three of these things in order to completely surrender and take refuge in Krishna. We can fully understand his transcendental nature and we can love him. Finally, just to add a reference to Star Wars. So in the movie called The Revenge of the Sith, when Anakin Skywalker is afraid of losing someone, Yoda tells him that he has to let go of his attachment because attachment leads to fear of losing the attachment, and anger leads to the dark side. Thank you. Next up is Dhruv.
Hare Krishna, everyone. Thank you for joining this afternoon. So I have verse 11. Ye yata mam prapadyante tamstataiva bhajami aham mama vartmanuvurtante manasya partha sarvashaha. As all surrender unto me, I reward them accordingly. Everyone follows my path in all respects, O son of Pritha. So my purport summary was, here Lord Krishna tends to meet everyone as they surrender to him. For those who deny his existence, he meets them in the form of karma. He sits inside their hearts, notes their actions, and releases the results. Even atheists cannot escape from serving him. They are obliged to serve God's material energy. Here, Lord Krishna also states that he reciprocates with everyone as they surrender to him. He then begins to respond to his devotees by their actions. My personal realizations is that no matter what, everyone is bound to follow Lord Krishna at some point of time in their life. Once they meet that point, they are stuck onto the Lord and never recede from serving him. In return for surrendering to him, he then proceeds on to taking care of their souls and destroys their accumulated karmas of endless lifetime. In the Bhagavad Gita, there is a verse that also talks about those who do not surrender to the Lord are the lowest of mankind. And this is the verse from chapter 7. It branches off to my verse 11 from chapter 4. Namam dukskritino mudaha prapyadyante naradamaha maya ya partadhyana asuram bhavam astritaha. This verse basically means that those who are lowest among mankind do not surrender unto Lord Krishna. Lord Krishna As for who doesn't surrender to Lord Krishna, oh sorry, I read the wrong one. So back to personal realizations. There are four kinds of people that do not surrender to the Lord: grossly foolish, which are also known as the Mudas, or the lowest among mankind; Naradama, those whose knowledge is stolen by illusion; Mayaya Partajnanaha, and those who follow the atheist nature of demons; Asuram Babam Asritaha. So the first one, which is grossly foolish or Mudas, the Mudas are those who are grossly foolish, like hardworking beasts of burden. They do not know what karma action is meant for yajna, sacrifice. Most often, those who work very hard day and night to clear the burden of self-created duties say that they have no time to hear of the immortality of the living being, or otherwise Lord Krishna. To such mudas, material gains which are destructible are life's all in all. Despite the fact that the mudas enjoy only a very small fraction of the fruit of labor, sometimes they spend sleepless days and nights for fruit of gain. And although they have ulcers or indigestion, they are satisfied with practically no food. They are simply absorbed in working hard day and night for the benefit of illusory masters. Ignorant of their real master, the foolish workers waste their valuable time serving Mammon. Unfortunately, they never surrender to the supreme master of all masters, which is Lord Krishna, nor do they take their time to hear of him from the proper sources. The swine who eat the night soil do not care to accept sweat meats made of sugar and ghee. Similarly, the foolish worker will untiringly continue to hear the sense of enjoyable tidings of the flickering mundane world, but will have little time to hear about the eternal living force that moves the material world. The second class, which is the lowest among mankind, also called Naradama, these Naradamas are the lowest of mankind. Nara means human being, and Adama means the lowest, so lowest of mankind. Out of the 8 million different species of living beings, there are 400,000 human species. Out of these are numerous lower forms of human life that are mostly uncivilized. The civilized human beings are those who have regulative principles of social, political, and religious life. Those who are socially and politically developed, but who have no religious principles, must be considered Naradamas. Nor is religion without God religion, because the purpose of following religious principles is to know the supreme truth and man's relation with Lord Krishna. In the Gita, the personality of Godhead clearly states that there is no authority above him and that he is the supreme truth. The civilized form of human life is meant for man's reviving the lost consciousness of his eternal relation with the supreme truth, the personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, who is all powerful. Whoever loses this chance is classified as a Naradama. We get information from revealed scriptures that when the baby is in the mother's womb, he prays to God for deliverance and promises to worship him alone as soon as he gets out. To pray to God when he is in difficulty is a natural instinct in every living being because he is internally related with God. But after his deliverance, the child forgets the difficulties of birth and forgets his deliverer also, being influenced by Maya, the illusionary energy. The third class of human beings is those whose knowledge is stolen by illusion, Mayaya Partha Jnanaha. The next class of Dukshkati. Those people whose eroded knowledge has been nullified by the influence of illusory material energy. They are mostly very learned fellows, great philosophers, poets, literati, scientists, etc. But the illusionary energy misguides them and therefore they disobey the Supreme Lord. There are a great number of Maya Pratajnanaha at the present moment, even amongst the scholars of the Gita. In the Gita, in plain and simple language, it is stated that Sri Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. There is none equal to or greater than him. He is mentioned as the father of Brahma, the original father of all human beings. In fact, Lord Krishna is said to be not only the father of Brahma, but also the father of all species of life. He is the root of impersonal Brahman and Paramatma. The supersoul in every entity is his plenary portion. He is the fountainhead of everything, and everyone is advised to surrender into his lotus feet. Despite all these clear statements, the Maya Parthagnana deride the personality of Supreme Lord and considered him merely another human being. They do not know what the blessed form of human life is designed after the eternal and transcendental feature of the Supreme Lord. The last class is those who follow the atheist nature of demons, asuram bhavam asritaha. So the last class of the Skriti, those of demonic principles. This class is openly atheistic. Some of them argue that the Supreme Lord can never descend upon this material world, but they're unable to give any tangible reasons as to why not. There are others who make him subordinate to the impersonal feature, although the opposite is declared in the Gita. Envious of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the atheist will present a number of illicit incarnations manufactured in the factory of his brain. Such people, whose very principle of life is to decry the personality of Godhead, cannot surrender unto the lotus feet of Sri Krishna. On to Madhavi Mataji. Thank you, everyone. Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much, Dhruv, and thank you to all the teenagers who presented today. Let's do this. Thank you so much. It was such a wonderful presentation just to see each of you share this. Today was the first time we all actually got to hear all 12 of them present at the same time, so it was a surprise for us as well. Are there any comments or realizations, anything that devotees here would like to share? Please unmute yourself and speak if you'd like to share something.
Hare Krishna, Mataji. Can you hear me?
Yes, Prabhu.
Mataji, I mean, this. Okay, let me turn on my camera as well because Big actually told me to. Here. So, this is an amazing presentation by all the kids. I mean, we are so fortunate, to have this atmosphere here, in Round Rock in Austin, and this is through you, Mahasundari Mataji and Kriti Mataji, that kids are getting this spiritual nourishment. I mean, we are very fortunate. And all the kids did an amazing job. I think that they can give like a Sunday Feast class, once the temple opens up, you can have each kid give one Sunday Feast class. I think that will go very well. Thank you so much for your service. It's a selfless service. I mean, I don't have words to define how I'm feeling now. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Prabhu and Mataji.
Yeah, I'll go next. I want to echo what Sakshi Gurung Prabhu just said. My realization is that all these teenagers from our youth class of Sunday school are so fortunate to have that self-inclined interest in learning the teachings of Gita. And that too in such a practical manner without any speculation, right? And as parents, we, like Prabhu said, we feel so fortunate that these youth have such incredible teachers like Mahasundari and Kruti, that who have helped really shape and mold the characters of our teenagers by providing them such a safe, versatile, and encouraging environment that these children can be themselves, right? They can express themselves as they are. And we really hope and pray that all these children, they go on to leverage these sacred yet practical teachings of Gita in their lives and be successful. Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Vaman Hari Prabhu. Please go ahead.
Hare Krishna. They did such a good job that only thing I'm afraid is the older preachers, they may have to slowly start retiring. And as Sakshi Gauranga Prabhu said, they should be given a chance maybe once a month or once in so often to give a class. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much, Prabhu.
Yeah, thank you, Mataji. I think I echo to all Prabhu and Mataji, whatever they have said, that it's really encouraging and inspiring for the adults, especially those who are not like people like me and many few others, I would say at least, that kids are doing so well. So even we should try to not match them. There's no competition, but try to advance ourselves as well. As an adult, not only just the kids, but even for adults as well. Thank you, Mataji. Thank you all.
Thank you so much, Prabhu.
I also just received a message from Kartamishi Prabhu in India. He was watching on Facebook Live, and he said that all these kids, they sound so confident and bold, like as if like they've been preaching for a very long time. and he said he thoroughly enjoyed listening to them. And he said that American devotee communities really have such an amazing program for children. Who are they learning under? So you see, others outside of the community can also recognize the impact of our amazing, wonderful teachers on these children of our community.
Oh, sorry, who gave this? Who sent this message, Prabhu?
This is Karta Mishri Prabhu. He's son of Narottam Prabhu, my godbrother from Mumbai.
Oh, okay, okay.
Yeah, Mataji, I would like to say one realization.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
It's just amazing to see like how everybody in our Sunday school class keeps on getting a level higher and higher and higher. Like I remember when in our old center, when we used to have Sunday school, my brother always used to ask, when am I going to get in the youth Sangha class? When am I going to get into youth Sangha class? And I was always saying that, when am I going to get into the youth Sangha class? And I also remember when I was in the lower class and I used to think, when I'm going to get to the middle class. And so it's just amazing to see how everybody's going into different classes, and before you know it, everybody will kind of graduate, and then you're going to be so excited. So it's just wonderful to see how everybody's just growing in their Krishna consciousness.
Wonderful. Thank you. This is Gitamrita. Very, very sweet.
Hare Krishna, Mataji.
Hi,
First of all, I would like to congratulate all the kids and all the gurus who trained them so well. It was so amazing, like they have given such a wonderful class, everyone, without even small this thing. So really, so nice to see. And thank you, everyone.
Hare Krishna, if I may say something. I mean, we all are fortunate to have these Vaikuntha children in our lives. But what makes it so special that Krishna has arranged Kriti and Mahasundari to be around us, to mold them in the right time. That is very important. I'm so thankful to Krishna, Mahasundari, Kriti, and all the Vaishnavas that we associate with. Thank you so much for being in our lives. Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much for all those words. I do want to say one thing here, and I'm sure Kriti echoes with me. This presentation actually was completely done by the teenagers from start to finish. This is their commitment, and as Ramaji Prabhu said, their interest. Every one of them spent time researching on it. Many of them sent us text messages asking questions because they weren't sure of a point and they wanted to understand more. Everyone researched and they spoke from their heart. It was when we did the first. This was obviously for us nerve-wracking because we've never done this before. We've never done a Sunday feast class of like having 12 people speak. And I want to give a special call out to Shreya and Hansa, who literally joined our Sunday class last Sunday. And we told them on Tuesday, would you like to speak today? And they both said yes. So they got like literally were put, right the deep end of the pool immediately. But they all did such a fantastic job. They all spent so much time researching, and it really goes to show this was their work. This is coming from their heart. This is their offering to Srila Prabhupada. So really kudos to them here. Our role in this, for us, it has been a journey of watching them grow, which has been very exciting. Vaikuntha Prabhu, I'm sorry, I think I cut you off. You were going to say something.
Hare Krishna. This is Vaikuntha Balaji. I want to thank everyone, all the presenters. They really did a very great job.
Including the teachers.
And I want to thank all the instructors for imparting such nice philosophical education to them. We are very fortunate to have Mahasundari Mataji and Kriti Mataji and other instructors too. It is interesting to note that the realization that each of these presenters had was really worth noting philosophically. Also, it was very interesting to note the essential points of Prabhupada's purports. And it's just amazing how they have accumulated and researched the philosophy that they talked about for each of those verses. Really, thank you so much for, and we thank you, the instructors also. Thank you.
Yeah, this is Sudhakar. Hare Krishna, everyone. It's a wonderful to see all the kids, and we are very fortunate to associate with Round Rock, ISKCON Round Rock devotees. So it's actually helping the kids to grow spiritually as well as on their personal front, whether it's like communication skill, presentation skills, researching the new things. So it is very amazing to see they are growing spiritually. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sudhakar Prabhu. I forgot to share one thing earlier. One of the most impressive things that I saw, and I had shared with the teenagers before, is their ability to give feedback to each other and help each other. So we did this dry run twice, and each person was giving feedback to the other. But you know, in the corporate world, you see when you've done something in a slide and someone gives you feedback, they're very harsh about it. But these kids were exceptional in how they gave feedback to each other. They were praising each other, they were helping each other, they were complimenting each other, and genuinely like the mood of positivity. It was very inspiring to see, and it's something we can all learn, because I think we need more positivity in this world, and we saw that consistently. Even today when we did the last session, there were some points that came up that, hey, maybe you can add this, maybe you can add that, and you know, within like 20 minutes it was in that presentation and they incorporated it. And it goes to show that mood of like collaboration and working together. It's a great skill, and this is a life skill for them and for us to learn from them on how we can be more collaborative in this world. Any other realizations before we do some fun thing today to wrap this up?
Mataji, I would like to share a few thoughts. It was so pleasing to hear each and every child speak with so much love and so much confidence, so much dedication and devotion. And thanks to all the teachers and the parents and also the kids, I mean, with so many conflicting priorities in their life as they are growing as teenagers, it becomes very difficult. I mean, we have the experience, right? I mean, when we become a teenager, we become a caveman or a cavewoman. We go to a room and lock inside and don't want to talk to anybody. But these kids have that facility to express their questions, their challenges and thoughts, whether it is about like anything about their personal life or the ongoing issues, the protests that are going on, the COVID situation. They have yourself, Mahasundari Mataji and Kriti Mataji, to share openly all these ideas and doubts and questions and get feedback. And thank you so much for being available. And we are very, very fortunate to have you as part of their lives. We are very grateful for that, because we know when we grew up, we didn't have this opportunity. But because of your dedication, your selfless efforts, you are providing that means for these kids to express their thoughts openly. Thank you so much for being part of their lives, Mahasundari Mataji and Kriti Mataji. Very grateful, very grateful.
Kind of going off of what Gopal Chandra Prabhu said, I also wanted to say thank you as being part of Mahasundari Mataji and Kriti Mataji's class. I know that a lot of times we have a set curriculum, but then in our class we start talking and we go off of like in tangents, but both Kriti Mataji and Madhuri Mataji always like facilitated these discussions and let us like grow the way we were growing. They didn't like try to impose like something onto us. They like guided us in the right direction and like tried to make sure we stayed on track, but they also like let us explore and learn things like just through our association of the other people in the class. I also just wanted to say like thank you, because this whole semester we had like such good conversations, and although it did get cut short like because of coronavirus, but even while we were online, like both Matajis made sure that the class was still like engaging and that we still learned a lot. So yeah, and I just like the time and dedication they put into this. Like Mataji always like tells us like, oh yeah, I was talking to Kriti Mataji about what we should do here, or I was talking to Kriti Mataji about this. So like it shows that even outside of youth class, they talk about us and try to make sure that we do the best we can do. So I just wanted to say thank you.
Yeah, Hare Krishna. Going off of what Parul said, I also really want to thank Mahasundari Mataji and Kriti Mataji for like putting in so much of your time and effort to like teach us and help us like understand life the right way. I always look forward to the class every week, and it's like really helping me. So yeah, thank you so much for like really inspiring us.
Mataji, I really liked how you and Kriti Mataji made all the discussions very interactive. There was not like a sitting down and it was a lecture just hearing you guys and like running it down. You always made us part of the conversation, made us part of the learning experience, which I find very few teachers doing nowadays. I'd like to commend previous sentiments made by Paru. Like she was stating that you guys spend so much time outside of each class, just preparing for the class. And I really thank you guys for making this possible, making, today's Sunday class possible and teaching us, whatever we've learned this semester and making it really fun and interactive for all of the students in the Youth Sangha class.
Yeah, I'd like to thank you guys too. You guys put in so much effort into our classes every week, and you've helped a lot of us grow as better people, and you've set such good role models for us and given us so many opportunities to learn. So I just wanted to thank you.
Thank you, Madhuri Mataji and Kriti Mataji. It was fun learning with y'all. You guys just didn't put random ideas in our head, but you also listened to our ideas, and it felt like we were open-minded and we could share what we wanted. Thank you.
I just also want to say that like you guys always validated our opinions, even if we felt like something wasn't necessarily like proper or if it made sense or anything. You guys always like took in whatever we said. And I was gonna say something else, but I don't.
Hare Krishna
Thank
Mataji.
you. Okay.
Wait, are you gonna go Mohit?
You're gonna go this time.
Okay. Well, thank you, Mataji, for putting in all the effort you do. Because, like, once I think Parul had the idea to do, like, a class on Thursdays, in which you were really kind and said, okay, because you have, like, a lot of stuff and, like, you have jobs and stuff, but still you put in the time and dedication to, like, help us in your spiritual lives. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Thank you for being very tolerant, especially with me, just the way I am. Masani Mataji and Kriti Mataji, I'll be honest. Thank you for that.
Thank you, Madhavi Mataji and Kritik Mataji. I really like our classes. I like everyone in our classes, and I really like the idea of like learning about the Gita more and understanding who and what Lord Krishna does. And I just wanted to point that out. Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you, Mataji, for being so tolerant of us. Like, you guys put in so much time and effort into this. And yeah, thank you. We learned a lot. And yeah.
Thank you so much. I have no words. This was not planned, devotee, so I'm absolutely speechless. If you can see, my face is turning pink. Kriti, I don't know if you want to share something.
Yeah, this is not planned, but this is their kids are so enthusiastic, like they have learned so much and they want to share their experiences, and really everyone are thankful to you. And
I like to say also Madhuri Mataji and Kriti Mataji. Thank you. Kids doing like very much confident. It shows the signs of the guru, how they are confident, how they are teaching. And we can see them same confident in the kids. So thank you for doing all the service. And kids also fantastic. You giving a fantastic class today.
Thank you. Kriti, would you like to say something?
I am a bit speechless. I wasn't expecting to hear all of that, but feel very grateful to be a part of all of their journeys. I feel like in a lot of ways it feeds back into me feeling inspired to go deeper into my own spiritual life. And so I feel that that's sort of like a feedback loop that Madhvi and I kind of talk about a lot, that their inspiration, that their enthusiasm often feeds us as well.
Yeah, I completely echo what she said. I'm pretty speechless, and it takes a lot to make me speechless. But I think and Rusagar is laughing as I make that statement. But one thing, like for us, and Kriti and I have spoken about this personally, is this has changed even how we look at the Bhagavad Gita. Very often when we read the Gita, we tend to read the verse, the translation, the purport. But what does that mean for us? that is sometimes missing, and that only comes in Sangha, like when you talk about this. As Parul said, we spent 3 weeks discussing one verse from the Gita, and it's a verse that I have heard many times, read many times, but to understand, why does Krishna specifically say fear, anger, attachment? Why not anything else? Or what Vijay Krishna said, why Krishna says Vivaswan Manu, why doesn't he say everybody else? Like asking, well, why is Krishna asking this? Why is Krishna saying this? It really changes how we see the Gita. So for us, it's actually been a journey of rediscovering Bhagavad Gita. So now when we have our smaller Gita groups, we talk about like, why does Krishna say this? And that really has come from seeing these youth, and they're so engaged. Now, they said such kind words, but they're the reason why we do this service. We get excited. We speak a few days before the classes because we get excited that firstly that we get to talk to each other, which is always fantastic, but it's also that we get excited to be amongst them. And and to all the parents who have, obviously to all the parents, but the parents of the teenagers, like, your kids are spectacular. They're very, very special. They have a very strong connection to Krishna, and it's a connection that it's just going to grow. And wherever they go, from here, that connection to Krishna will never go away, and it's very evident. So thank you so much to the parents for trusting your children with us, and sometimes confused on why there is a lot of noises coming from the youth room session. But just like having faith in us, we take it very seriously, and we're very honored to do this service, actually.
Thank you for your dedication. We appreciate that. Thank you very much.
So we're going to do something which we haven't done before, but I do think that this warrants. So we've had guest speakers from March. So 2 months we've done guest speakers, but not once have we actually done an applause for any of our guest speakers. But I do think the teenagers deserve an applause. So what we're going to do is for maybe a minute or so, unmute yourself and just clap for them,
I think Mahasundari said for a minute, right?
More time.
First, 1 minute by Indian Standard Time.
For the teachers to claps.
Thank you again so much to all the kids. Fantastic job. And to all the parents and everyone. Great job. We will now kind of switch over to our Sunday Feast announcements. Let me go ahead and get my screen share going now.
Yeah. I forgot about that.
Who are you talking about, Sakshi Gaurang Prabhu?
Oh my God. I can't hear. I'm going to just mute everybody while we go through the announcements. Okay, so today we have actually quite a few announcements. Hopefully we can get through them. Again, all the youth, thank you for a wonderful class. Today is, and let me see if I can find Gopabhav Prabhu and Jishnu. Where are you all hiding? There you go. Today is, yesterday was Jishnu's birthday. And today they are sponsoring Sunday Feast on behalf of Jishnu. Gopabhav Prabhu sent me a message that it was hard for my brain to process. So I think this was Jishnu's turn. It was his 3rd birthday. And he completed 3. I always get confused between whether completed and what it means. But Jishnu had a 3rd birthday yesterday, and he is now very soon going to be a 4-year-old. So let's do this. Vijay Krishna, can you unmute yourself and sing Hare Krishna to Jishnu?
Yes. Wait, Hare Krishna to you?
Yes, just Hare Krishna to you, nothing beyond that.
All right. Hare Krishna to you. Hare Krishna to you. Hare Krishna, dear Jishnu. Hare Krishna to you.
Very nice. Happy birthday, Jishnu.
Thank you.
Hopefully we can do big kirtan once the center opens for your birthday. And only fast kirtan, just with Jishnu.
Happy birthday, Jishnu.
Again, thank you to all our monthly donors for your
Mataji, sorry to interrupt. It is also Ishan's birthday on 16th.
Yes.
Krishna Chandra Prabhu is also sponsoring today's feast.
Oh, Jai. Okay, so where's Ishan? There he is. Okay, so Parul, why don't you sing for your brother since you called your brother out in the presentation?
Hare Krishna to you, Hare Krishna to you, Hare Krishna, dear Ishan, Hare Krishna to you.
Very nice. And Ishan, you turn 11, right?
Yes, Mataji.
Yes, very nice. Happy birthday,
Happy birthday,
to
Ishan.
Ishan as well. And thank you, Krishna Chandra Prabhu, for sponsoring today's Sunday feast. We're going to quickly go through some more announcements here. This past week, we celebrated appearance and disappearance of two very great Vaishnavas. Both of them departed this world too soon, and both of them have continued to play, despite of their disappearance, a very significant role in our Hare Krishna movement. So today we wanted to spend a few minutes to recognize His Holiness Tamakrishna Goswami Maharaj and Bhakti Tirtha Swami. So we have Vaman Hari Prabhu first, who will speak just for a few minutes about Tamal Krishna Maharaj and his association and his experiences with Tamal Krishna. Vaman Hari Prabhu, please go ahead.
Yes, Mataji, Hare Krishna. Gopal Chandra Prabhu, our president, he has issued an executive order for me, and along with the order, he gave me the power to speak also. So if there are any mistakes, they are mine, but if there is anything proper, it is from his side. So let me start saying something. I seek all your blessings and Prabhupada's blessings. Namam Vishnupadaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamini Iti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharini Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarni Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Sivasadi Gaur Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Vancha kalpatarupyasya kripasindhubhyo cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. So now coming to Maharaj thing. Maharaj was born in Harlem, New York in 1946. In 1968, he began associating with ISKCON, and the same year, he was accepted by His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada in San Francisco as his disciple. Soon he emerged as a leader and assumed various positions of leadership. From 1970 to 2002, until he left the body, he was GBC. In 1970 to 74, he was GBC for India's GBC secretary. 77 till 2002 as a trustee of BBT, overseeing the sales of books in USA. In 1977 to 2002, he was initiating spiritual master. He was fondly called as Gurudeva by his disciples and as Goswami by his godbrothers. In 1972, January, he accepted an ounce order of life, sannyasa, in Jaipur, India, and assumed the title of Goswami. From 1975 to 79, he headed the Radha Damodar party. The party consisted of hundreds of Srila Prabhupada's disciples who traveled around America in buses, distributing Srila Prabhupada's books. He also spearheaded the establishment of various ISKCON temples and centers in India and Great Britain, and of course USA. He was closely associated with Prabhupada as his secretary and GBC for India, developing major projects in Vrindavan and Bombay. In 1977, as one of Srila Prabhupada's most trusted disciples, Tamal Krishna Goswami served as his personal secretary during the 7 months before Srila Prabhupada left his body. All these years and dates, they are not probably in chronological order. Excuse me for that. In 1995, he was enrolled in SMU in Dallas and graduated in 98 with BA in religious studies. He then moved to England to pursue his PhD at University of Cambridge and wrote his dissertation on the theological teachings of Srila Prabhupada. In 2002, March 15th, he left his body in a vehicular accident in West Bengal, India. His PhD thesis was incomplete, but later was completed with help of His Grace Garuda Dasa and was awarded posthumously. There was a ceremony in Dallas where many senior disciples of Srila Prabhupada were present. And I'm sure some of the devotees from also were present at that time. Maharaj has several books. He authored several books, Servant of Servant and the Drama of Lord Jagannath, the Final Pastimes of Srila Prabhupada, Yoga for the New Millennium, Song of God, Reason and Belief, and Hare Krishna at SMU, and TKG's diary, and the last one is his thesis, A Living Theology of Krishna Bhakti. And there is a TKG Foundation, TKG Academy, they were established and they have some ongoing programs in Dallas. Though Texas was Maharaj's base, in the last years, he traveled to Far East, and I believe Maharaj went to China. He was the first one to go to China. He must have planted the seed. Now we hear that there are thousands of followers underground in China. And I happened to see Maharaj a few occasions. One was in 1979 when Prabhupada Palace was opened. There were, I think, 9 out of 11 the gurus who came after Prabhupada left. He was there that time. And I saw in one of the video or live when Maharaj takes darshan of the deities after the deity greetings, he used binocular so he can see clearly the deities and their outfits and all that. And Maharaj was preaching in Fiji. In one of the lectures, I heard that one in the audience has had a question. Our Baba has produced gold from ash. Has Prabhupada done any magic? So Maharaj answered that Prabhupada has produced some thousands of disciples who are following this Vaishnava philosophy so seriously. Is that more valuable or an ounce of gold? So that was Maharaj's answer. And Maharaj was involved with building a temple in Fiji. And before he left, Maharaj told my Guru Maharaj to help them in developing the temple or to assist him. And when Maharaj left, my Guru Maharaj took the lead and completed the project. I think I took more time than my allotted time. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Vaman Hai Prabhu. We wanted to honor Damakrishna Maharaj because of Damakrishna Maharaj's influence in Texas. We go to Dallas, Houston. We really see the fructification of Damakrishna Maharaj's vision in these temples. So thank you, Vaman Hai Prabhu, for sharing about Damakrishna Maharaj. And then the other really great Vaishnava who celebrated his disappearance 15 years ago this year was His Holiness Bhakti Tirtha Swami. So we'll have Ramvijay Prabhu speak a little bit about Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj.
Thank you, Mataji. Vamanari Prabhu, the lecture you mentioned about the Malkrishna Maharaj, that is such a wonderful lecture. If anybody has not seen it, maybe we can post a link of that lecture here in the chat, where Maharaj so fearlessly and with so much confidence about the difference between the demigods and various incarnations and imposters that exists in the world today claiming to be God. It was such an eye-opener. I mean, you listen to Maharaj speaking, you feel like as if there is a lion roaring, you know, from his seat, speaking about with such conviction about Krishna. We wish and we pray that, you know, we have one day developed that sort of conviction. And speaking of, you know, Maharaj roaring as a lion, there was another lion at the same time. You know, Bhakti Tirth Maharaj, as I call him. Bhakti Tirth Maharaj, you know, we don't have a time to go into a lot of details, but you know, just to give you an idea in the environment that he grew up in, right? This is before the civil rights movement. Being in a black body in America at that time was not an easy thing. Martin Luther King was taking inspiration from Mahatma Gandhi to lead the civil rights movement in America, asking for a change. There were many other leaders. But years before that, in 1950, Bhakti Tirth Maharaj, you know, was born in the ghettos of Cleveland, Ohio. And when I say ghettos at that time, you know, there was so much prejudice based on the color of the body that was existent, that there was a separate area where, you know, black communities would live in segregation. It was so bad in the communities that he grew up in, and his father left at an early age. You know, being, you know, he was a, you know, practically being raised by the mom. They were so poor that he would have 2 or 3 changes of clothes. And if somebody who came to their home and did not have even 2 or 3 changes of clothes, his mom would give 1 pair of his clothes to that child. There was so much crime that even in school at that age, 12-year-old, they used to carry guns. Maharaj used to carry a gun because if there was an argument, somebody would pull a gun. And his childhood was very difficult. We think our childhood is difficult. The kids that are growing up now in the environment that we are in the schools and the colleges, Maharaj suffered from a speech defect. He used to stammer a lot, and he used to get called out in the classroom if teacher asked a question, and it would take him literally minutes to speak a sentence. And while he was stammering, the kids would make fun of him. He had a very difficult time. We think about bullying and we think about these things, right? He had a very difficult childhood. But one thing at which he never stammered was when he would speak from Bible. If any of you know, you know, speaking the name of God would just as if let him free. He would never stammer. He was like a young prodigy speaking on, you know, the teachings of Jesus. He would be called to radio shows, you know, to give, you know, as if sermons, you know. He was blessed in that way. And, you know, as he was in school, he was trying to, you know, he had that inclination to still keep learning, right? Somebody noticed that this kid is special and he should be given more opportunities. And this Jewish lady, you know, who, you know, was white skinned and, you know, really was very favorable to, at that time, his name, John Favors. He was born as John Favors. You know, knew somebody in a very reputed school for non-blacks. And she knew the principal. And she said, you just got to talk to this boy, you know. And that gave him an opportunity to be given scholarship to come into that school and learn there. And anybody who graduated from this school could go to any prestigious Ivy League college in America. And when Maharaj graduated, his principal told him, you tell me the college you want to go to, I will write a personal letter for you and you will get admitted. Maharaj applied to many, many schools, and literally every single Ivy school gave him admission based on not only just his own abilities, also the recommendation letter he had. Eventually, he selects to go to Princeton University, where full tuition was paid, living expenses. Practically, they were paying him to come to school, right, as if he had a job. But at that time, Maharaj was very philosophically inclined. I mean, I think his degree is in either philosophy or psychology, one of the two. I can't recall which one exactly now. But he had such deep questions that he was looking to, he was looking for answers to these deep philosophical questions. And at that time, there was a guru from India that he was following. And he went to him and he asked him so many questions. Eventually, the guru basically had to tell Bhaktitirtha Maharaj that all these questions you have, there's only one person on this planet that I know of that can answer these questions of life that you have. And his name is A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. So you go to him. So Maharaj then met devotees and moved to New York and started serving there. And after some time, Srila Prabhupada came. And when he met with Srila Prabhupada, he went to Srila Prabhupada, and by this time he had started learning the philosophy and everything, right? He went to Srila Prabhupada and he said something which is very similar to the conditions we see around us today, what's happening in this country and around the world for that matter. And he said, and this exists in our society, unfortunately, ISKCON also today. And there is no hiding the fact, right? He said to Srila Prabhupada that, I've been here and I noticed that, I'm treated differently. And mind you, at that time, there were not many black-bodied devotees in ISKCON society. And he said that I'm treated differently. I'm made fun of based on the color of my body, the services I do and all that stuff, right? So he was indicating to Prabhupada that there is a differentiation because of the color of my body. And Maharaj says this himself, and he's narrating all this to Radhanath Maharaj at the time, later on, in later years. And he said, Srila Prabhupada looked at him, and Srila Prabhupada said, our most basic philosophy of Gita is to understand that we are not this body, and we should not be differentiating on the basis of the body. Now, Prabhupada did not criticize anyone who said what, he didn't want to know any of that. But Srila Prabhupada was hammering a message through what Prabhupada was about to say. Prabhupada made some philosophical points, and Prabhupada said that if somebody is identifying you on the basis of the color of the body, but you are identifying your hurtfulness on the basis of what somebody else is saying, what is the difference between you and them? That was such a, that point that Srila Prabhupada made, that if you're affected by somebody discriminating on the basis of the color of your body, that means you also identify yourself with the body, which is a very important point to understand. So Maharaj mentions that, that discussion completely changed his life. And that gave him so much confidence in Srila Prabhupada and the books and the teachings of Gita and all the books that Prabhupada wrote and was about to write, that he became fearless from that point on. And Maharaj, both Tamal Krishna Maharaj, Bhaktitirtha Maharaj, has such a deep connection to the state of Texas. Believe it or not, we live in a state which is where racial profiling is so prominent, that he actually joined to assist Satsarup Goswami Maharaj in Dallas at the Gurukul. And when the Gurukul was moved to Vrindavan, Maharaj moved on to the service of book distribution. And the first place, Prabhupada, he heard in some lecture or Prabhupada saying that, we should make the students in colleges the first class citizens based on the teachings of Bhagavad Gita and our Krishna consciousness philosophy. So he said, okay, we are going to go to do preaching in colleges, do book distribution in colleges in San Antonio. So that's where Maharaj, for the first time, he went to San Antonio alongside another devotee by the name of another Prabhupada disciple, Mahabudhi Prabhu. And Mahabudhi Prabhu was also, at that time, an activist, a social activist, out of, I think, San Diego University and whatnot. Bhaktitirtha Maharaj was also very much an activist. Right? He looked at himself as an activist. Somebody asked him at the time of graduation from Princeton University, what do you want to be?
He said, I want to be an activist for bringing about the real change in consciousness in this world. So, they started doing book distribution here in San Antonio. And from there on, he went on to do book distribution across various colleges. And there's so many beautiful book distribution stories where, where somebody could not think that he could distribute books, he would go and distribute books. And I know we are getting late. I will pause. Give me just one more minute. I want to just make this point about how important book distribution is. Bhaktivedanta Maharaj was, Mahabodhi Prabhu calls him that, he used to call him, this person is a mystic. Where nobody can go and do book distribution, he could go and do it. And one such example comes to mind is, when they used to drive through all these different, small little towns and colleges in US to do book distribution. One time they came across this small little town, and there was this college, and they go there and they see there is not a single car in the parking lot. There's not a single student to be seen. There's not a single body on the campus. And they're thinking like, what's going on? It's a weekday. Everybody should be there. And then they realize today is some sort of a national holiday or something, and the university is closed. So Mahabodhi Prabhu tells Bhaktivedanta Maharaj, let's go to the next town. He goes, no. Let's see. Maybe there is somebody. He goes, no, there is nobody here. We cannot go. So they kind of argued back and forth. But then Bhaktivedanta Maharaj gives in and he says, okay, we'll go. Let me just go use the restroom. So he says, okay, fine. So Mahabodhi Prabhu is waiting in the car, and Bhaktivedanta Maharaj goes in, and 15 minutes pass by, 30 minutes pass by, an hour goes by, 2 hours goes by. Maharaj doesn't come back. Now Mahabodhi Prabhu is getting really upset. Like, we have to go, and there's nobody here. I don't know why it is taking him so long. So just after 2 hours, Bhaktivedanta Maharaj comes back. He's like so excited, so happy, beaming with smile, And Mahabodhi Prabhu says that, I was about to get like, just about to burst and I was to get upset with him. But I thought, this guy is a mystic. Let me just hear him out first, So then he asked him what happened. He goes, I was going to come back. I was inside the restroom. And just when I was in the restroom, another person walked in. And he's like, in the restroom, everybody does their business. But here, Bhaktivedanta Maharaj just saw that as an opportunity to preach inside the restroom. And then he started talking to him about Krishna. And this person said, I am the professor of religious studies in this school. I'm not supposed to be here today, but I had some work. So I just came to my office and I wanted to use the restroom. Why don't you come to my office? So he said, I was talking to him for the last 30 minutes. And then after 30 minutes, Prabhupada had actually sent a message to all the disciples that take standing orders of books, even the books I have not yet translated and they have not yet been printed. And we'll send them these books, take standing orders. So he said after 30-minute conversation, he agreed to take the entire standing order of the books of Srila Prabhupada. Not one book, but every single book that Prabhupada had translated was not yet printed and Prabhupada was translating, right? He took that order. And then Bhaktivedanta Maharaj was about to leave and he said, what about libraries? Do you know anybody in the library? He goes, yeah, librarian is my good friend. Let me call the librarian. So the professor calls the librarian at his home. And the librarian says, you know what? I had some work, so I just came to the library. Why don't you send this boy to me in the library? So he goes to the library. And in another 30, 40 minutes, the librarian gets the complete standing order of Prabhupada's books. So there are many such stories about Bhaktivedanta Maharaj's book preaching, going to Russia, being chased by KGB, and Maharaj running across the hallways of a university, entering a room that was open, and there is a professor sitting inside, and he's, to save himself from the KGB, he's saying, I have an appointment with you. And lo and behold, he does book distribution there without an appointment to a professor in Russia during those times. So anyway, there are so many wonderful pastimes of Bhaktivedanta Maharaj. I had a personal greatest fortune to have met Bhaktivedanta Maharaj almost just a couple of weeks before his passing. And that kirtan that I was able to attend at Gita Nagri, where Maharaj came, his legs amputated, till today is so live in my heart, because that was such a moment for me, seeing the love in his eyes for his disciples, for his well-wishers who had come to see him. He was in so much pain because of the melanoma cancer. He was in so much pain bodily, yet every weekend, as long as it was humanly possible for him to be lifted up in a palanquin and brought to the temple room to give darshan to his disciples, to his well-wishers, he would do it. So if anybody has not seen that kirtan on YouTube, it's there. You can just go Bhakti Tirth Swami last kirtan. You can see the kirtan and the love. 15-16 minute video. It is amazing. With that, I will stop. There's so much to speak about Bhakti Tirth Maharaj. It will take probably an hour or more, at least for me. I know others can speak for longer duration of time, but I wanted to just share some of these beautiful inspirational pastimes of book preaching, book distribution and preaching by Bhakti Tirth Maharaj. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much, Ramaji Prabhu. Also, Ramaji Prabhu, that was by accident that I switched to the wrong next slide. My finger was like tapping right near the keyboard, so it wasn't please hurry up sort of a thing. But thank you for sharing those two beautiful pastimes. I highly encourage devotees to please find books, both written by Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj and Tamal Krishna Maharaj. Almost all of Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj's books are available on Amazon. Almost all are available on Kindle. Highly, highly encourage you to read it. Maharaj wrote these books almost 20 years ago, but they're so relevant for what we're seeing out today in the world. Highly, highly encourage you all. And same thing for Tamal Krishna Maharaj. Things Tamal Krishna Maharaj had spoken about 20, 25 years ago were unthinkable back then. But today you're seeing that his vision of what he said 20 years ago, you're seeing a reality today. So again, highly encourage you all to read, hear about them. We will share a link afterwards of a wonderful class given by His Holiness Radhanath Swami, where he spoke in Dallas about Tamal Krishna Maharaj and Bhakti Tirtha Swami together. Very powerful class, so we'll share that afterwards. We wanted to take today an opportunity to honor these Vaishnavas, because speaking about them, you could see how much joy Ramvijay Prabhu and Vaman Hari Prabhu were feeling just to talk about these Vaishnavas. So for us, it's important to recognize. Quickly going through, we have some upcoming Vaishnava festivals. This Tuesday is Ekadashi. And then the following Saturday is Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur's disappearance day. So it's also fasting till noon on that Saturday. 21st is Gundicha Marjana in Jagannath Puri. That is the day where devotees clean Gundicha temple in preparation for Lord Jagannath. And on June 22nd is Rath Yatra in Puri. This is the first Rath Yatra in documented history where it's not going to happen outside. But I know they're going to be live streaming the celebrations. So we will send links to everyone so you can watch Rath Yatra from the comfort of your home of what is happening in Puri. Some other really exciting upcoming programs. We started yesterday with Adi Gadadhar Prabhu. Sorry, Prabhu, 1 second. So we started yesterday with Adi Gadadhar Prabhu giving a wonderful class on the pastime of Chaitanya Charitamrita that continues tonight as well from 7 to 8:15. Next weekend, Amarendra Prabhu is going to be giving a really nice session in collaboration with 5 other temples on Rath Yatra, and the title is Shri Rath Yatra, Transcendental Pull of Emotions. This is going to be on Saturday from 10 to noon and Mondays from 6:30 to 8:30. And then finally, we were supposed to have the Rasa Chintamani festival this year, but because of coronavirus, obviously the festival has now had unfortunately to be cancelled or postponed to a different time. But we're very excited that His Grace Gauranga Prabhu will be giving a seminar on 5 lessons on dependence, or actually independence, from Bali Maharaj's pastime. So please join us for this. We'll get more details to become available. All these 3 programs have different Zoom links than our temple Zoom link. So please keep note of that as we post information in WhatsApp. None of these programs will be on our temple Zoom, so just making sure you're aware of this. It's going to be exciting few weekends of some nectarian classes by 3 wonderful, wonderful devotees. Again, we've been doing Krishna book reading. So far, we have come to this wonderful junction of Brahma having kidnapped all of the gopas and the cows and realizing his folly. This Tuesday, we will hear the beautiful prayers that Brahma is going to chant. One of the most famous prayers in Srimad Bhagavatam, quoted very often by Srila Prabhupada, Tattenu Kampam Susamikshamano, about tolerance, comes in this section. So if you want to hear more about the prayers of Brahma, please join us this Tuesday from 8 to 9, and we will be reading chapter 14 of Krishna book this week. Again, quickly Ramaji Prabhu spoke so much about book distribution. Thank you, devotees, for continuing to distribute books. For the past couple of weeks, we placed books in motels, hotels, smart boxes, and devotees are continuing to sponsor. If you would like to again sponsor, yesterday we took about over 50 books to downtown, and Stephanie, one of our congregational members, will be helping us place these books in little libraries in downtown. So if you would again like to sponsor any boxes of books that we will place, please speak with me. We're happy to serve you this way. I also wanted to I didn't have a slide for this, but wanted to call into attention that we know the protests and everything are happening around the world. And devotees in San Antonio actually have been distributing prasadam during the protests in San Antonio for Black Lives Matter. If any devotees are interested in helping donate so that they can continue to distribute prasadam to the protesters, please speak with Rup Sagar or I. We can provide some information. So that way we are distributing prasadam to people out there who are in need and who will benefit a lot from transcendental prasadam. Again, summer is here. We know that because time to read more books. If there's any packages you're interested in getting, please contact me afterwards. And a bunch of devotees got the youth packages and the kids books packages, but there are a lot of other wonderful books to read, especially nice time to read about Srila Prabhupada to prepare ourselves for Janmashtami and Vyas Puja. Prayers are requested, of course, for victims of coronavirus and strength for their friends and family. Healthcare professionals will continue to treat thousands every day. General peace around US